She broke the rules to save 15 lives, and for that, they clipped her wings. Captain Aria Navarro once held the top flight record at Falcon Bay Air Wing. Bahrain. Her name meant precision, control, and daring brilliance in the cockpit of an F-35 Lightning II until Iraq. Until the night she dove nearly vertical into enemy fire, a maneuver no manual had written, and pulled 15 Delta Force operators out of what should have been body bags. They went home alive. She went home grounded. Navarro. "You're finished," Colonel Marcus Rourke had said, voice cold as the steel around them. "Your reckless flying endangers everyone. Hand over your clearance." 3 weeks later, the base still roared with the chaos of routine sorties. F-35s thundered overhead in tight diamond formations. Ground crews sprinted across the tarmac with flawless rhythm, fueling and arming the birds that would carry others into battle. And Aria, she stood on the observation deck, a ghost in her own squadron, watching her jet sit buried in Hangar 7, covered and forgotten. The sting of Rourke's words still cut deep, reckless, dangerous, undisciplined. Yet the irony was brutal. That recklessness had been the only reason 15 Americans weren't buried under flag-draped coffins. Aria leaned on the railing, shoulders tight, eyes following the squadron she had once led. Each roar of the afterburners wasn't inspiration anymore. It was torment. It was a reminder that the sky belonged to them now, not her. From behind. Footsteps. Lieutenant Commander Jordan Reese, one of the few who still spoke to her, appeared with 2 cups of coffee, admiring the view. "Yeah," Aria muttered, taking the cup. "The view of my F-35 collecting dust. The view of rules keeping me grounded while the others fly missions I should be on." Reese gave a half smile, leaning on the rail beside her. "Some of us think what you pulled in Iraq was exactly what needed to be done." "Tell that to the review board," Aria said flatly. "I did. Didn't change much. Didn't change." The ambush had been worse than any briefing predicted. Intel called it light contact. In reality, it was over 300 insurgents with heavy machine guns and mortars. Alpha Squad pinned against rocks. Minutes from annihilation. Artillery support 20 minutes away. A death sentence. Aria had studied the terrain, the winds. The angles then made the impossible call. She nosed the F-35 into a sheer dive, targeting systems screaming as she ripped enemy guns off the ridgeline. Flying so low she clipped dust off the desert floor. The kind of flying that looked suicidal from the ground. Miraculous in hindsight. 15 men went home alive. But Aria went to Colonel Rourke's office. "You ignored a direct order, risked a multi-million-dollar aircraft, and gambled with your career. You're grounded, indefinitely. Now." As she stood on that deck, sipping coffee that tasted more like pity than friendship, a young staff sergeant sprinted toward her. His expression wasn't routine, it was urgency. Fear, something breaking through the base's usual calm. "Captain Navarro," he said, out of breath. "Colonel Rourke needs you." "Now." Aria's pulse spiked. She was grounded. She wasn't on the roster. Yet the look in the sergeant's eyes told her this wasn't just another meeting. It was the beginning of something that would change everything. Before we head into the crisis, briefing hit subscribe for more untold military stories, and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We read every city, every country. It's how this community grows. The staff sergeant didn't slow until he reached her. "Captain Navarro, Colonel Rourke, asked for you specifically." Aria glanced at Lieutenant Commander Jordan Reese. He only shrugged and fell into step. Whatever this was, it had enough gravity to bend protocol. The command briefing room throbbed with tension when they walked in. Every pilot was present ops planners, intel analysts, comms officers more at home in high-priority ops than routine sorties. The buzz cut off the second Colonel Marcus Rourke stepped forward, his face normally composed. Bordering on severe carried something Aria almost never saw in him: concern that flirted with panic. "Ladies and gentlemen, we face a crisis requiring immediate response." His voice didn't waver. At Oro 347 local, a diplomatic convoy moving through the Shahrak Highlands, northern Afghanistan was ambushed by hostile forces. The big screen flashed to a rugged mountain grid studded with red markers. 2 high-value personnel were seized, Rourke said, and the room's oxygen changed. General Rebecca Hayes, CENTCOM commander, General Victor Stein, NATO Allied Command Ops. The murmur that followed wasn't surprise. It was the collective calculation of fallout. 2 4-stars captured wasn't just a tactical disaster. It was a propaganda jackpot for the enemy. An intelligence breach that could spiral into a regional firestorm. Initial recovery missions have failed. Rourke continued. "We've already lost 3 Blackhawks and 1 MQ-9 Reaper drone to SAM systems layered around the site. The captives are being held inside a hardened compound, protected by steep ridge lines and overlapping fire zones. Intel estimates 300-plus insurgents controlling the area. Major Daniels, grizzled and unflinching, raised a hand. Operational rules: rescue or elimination. Rescue is top priority," Rourke said. "Drone feeds confirm both generals alive. Intercept suggests they'll be moved in 4 hours." "That's our window." Aria studied the tactical imagery. The valley was a fortress shaped by nature and perfected by human intent. 2 main approaches throttled by air defenses. Kill boxes stacked in depth. Textbook ingress routes were pre-sighted death. Attack patterns any pilot would choose were exactly what the defenders had built to dismantle. The problem wasn't the strength of the defenses alone, it was their predictability. Every sensible path was a trap. She stood. Not on the agenda, not cleared. She stood anyway. "Sir," Aria said, eyes on the ridgeline contours. "We're getting torn up because we're coming the way they expect. There's a canyon here, narrow. Ugly, but it runs blind to their primary radar fans. If a jet used the terrain to mask until the last second, we could neutralize the SAM batteries before they spool to fire." Major Daniels stared like she'd suggested flying through a keyhole. "You're talking near-supersonic in a mountain ravine. Margin for error is 0. "The margin is already 0, Aria answered. "We keep playing by the book. We lose them." Rourke's gaze cut to her. "Captain Navarro, you're under disciplinary review for reckless flying. The maneuvers you're proposing would demand the same." "Yes, sir," she said, steady. "And if you fail, it won't just be your career," Daniels added. 2 of the most senior leaders in the Alliance die." Aria met Rourke's eyes and didn't blink. "Sir, if we stick to convention, they're already lost. This gives them a chance." Silence took the room heavy. Thinking silence. The kind that measures risk against inevitability. Aria watched a dozen calculations move behind Rourke's eyes, the court-martial if she failed. The catastrophe if he didn't try. He didn't resolve it there. "Navarro," he said finally, voice low, "step into the hall." She followed him out. The door shut, the room exhaled. Inside. People returned to planning. Outside, it felt like the entire base held its breath. Rourke folded his arms, weighed her with a look that cut through rank and posture. "Tell me the truth about Iraq," he said. "Was that dive necessary, or were you showing off the question hit dead center? It was the same one that had haunted every quiet hour for 3 weeks. Aria didn't dress it up. "Sir, that dive was the only way those 15 Delta operators walked away. I'd make the same call again." Rourke nodded once. Not satisfied, but informed. "And this canyon I can't promise survival," Aria said. "But if no one flies it, General Hayes and General Stein don't make it home. You think you're the one to try? I've spent 3 weeks grounded. Flying this run in my head while everyone else flew patterns. I know the F-35 Lightning too, and I know what it does at the edge of its envelope." Rourke stared past her, seeing the board of inquiry, the headlines if this went wrong, the graves if he said no. Then he opened the door and stepped back into the storm. "Change of plan," he told the room. "Captain Navarro will lead a single aircraft precision strike to dismantle the air defenses and open the corridor for extraction." Shock rippled through the pilot's quick side glances, tight jaw lines. The grounded flyer accused of recklessness was about to carry the mission of their careers. "Sir," Major Daniels said carefully, "Navarro is still under review, and she's the only pilot here who's demonstrated the precision this op demands." Rourke answered. "The review is suspended until mission end." Adrenaline and responsibility hit Aria in equal measure. This wasn't about clearing her name, it was about bringing two generals home. "Navarro, you've got 15 minutes to review the mission packet and step," Rourke said. "Crew's prepping your jet." The ops floor emptied into motion, a human machine humming at high output. Reese appeared at Aria's shoulder, quiet and present. "You're not crazy," he said. "You're right. Bring them home." Aria nodded once and moved. Hangar 7 felt like a heart that had finally started beating again. The tarp was gone. Her F-35 gleamed under work lights, panels closed, access ladders retracted. Chief Ramirez met her at the nose. "Captain, she's at peak. We loaded SDBs and JDAMs tuned for those SAM nests. EOTS is crisp. You'll have eyes where they don't. How's she feel?" "Chief, like she's been waiting 3 weeks just for this." Aria's pre-flight was surgical, hydraulics, fuel flow, weapons. Data links, every system she touched answered clean. Every gauge sat exactly where it should. The cockpit welcomed her like a memory soft chimes. Crystal displays wrapping her in fused awareness. This was the only place she felt fully alive, strapped into a jet that translated decision into physics. She taxied out. The runway lit ahead like a blade. Tower. Falcon 7 requesting immediate departure. Falcon 7 cleared, Godspeed, wheels up. Bahrain fell away as the F-35 leapt, a spear aimed across the darkness. She climbed, then pushed to cruise, letting the jet settle into the rhythm that felt like her own pulse. Overwatch slid into her headset, cool and professional. "Falcon 7. Target zone 20 minutes from your boundary. Be advised. Hostile air defenses denser than initial brief." "Copy," Aria said. She dropped altitude in deliberate steps, trading panoramic sky for the safer shadow-hugging terrain. The Gulf gave way to land, and land lifted into mountains that had humbled armies for centuries. On the second monitor, the mission packet updated enemy fires shifting, vehicles repositioning, guards tightening around the compound. Rescue 1 and Rescue 2 waited at holding points. They needed a hole punched through the umbrella, and they needed it on time. "Falcon 7. Remind us of your ingress," Overwatch asked. A thread of doubt under the calm. "East Ridge Mask, Blind Canyon Lane, pop behind the SAM array, neutralize, then hold for rescue ingress, margin 0. But we knew that when we left the barn." Her breathing steadied. Fear wasn't gone. It was leashed through her HUD. The mountains sharpened like closing jaws. Somewhere inside that wall was the slit of canyon only she was reckless or desperate enough to fly. Aria rolled into descent, nose toward the seam of rock, and the canyon swallowed the jet whole. Stone walls whipped past her wingtips as Falcon 7 thundered into the canyon, the world collapsing to a tunnel of black rock and speed. At near-supersonic. The margin wasn't inches, it was millimeters. A single twitch would smear her across the cliffs. She didn't twitch. She flew. The canyon spat her out into the blind spot behind the enemy's grid. Target diamonds flared on her HUD. Her hands moved before thought. One SDB erased the northern SAM. Another folded the eastern rack into fire. A JDAM vaporized the central command van. Overwatch. Falcon 7. Air defenses neutralized. Copy. Rescue elements advancing. Without that strike, no helicopter could have survived the valley, but the fight was only beginning. Drone feeds showed fighters swarming the compound, 300 insurgents converging, tightening around the central building where Generals Hayes and Stein were caged. Aria climbed into orbit, jet circling like a predator. Her first burst shredded a rooftop nest. A second strike cracked open the gate where insurgents massed. She painted targets, each shot carving absence. No RPG here, no machine gun there. Rescue 1. Lane clear. Move. Through the canopy, helicopters stormed in, rotors throwing dust into chaos. Special operators spilled and cut through doorways. Below was hell. Above was the shield Aria's F-35 holding the ring. Falcon 7. Extraction in progress. Hold perimeter. Copy. Nothing touches them. Then her sensors lit armored trucks barreling down the valley. She dove, loosed JDAMs, and the lead vehicles erupted, metal and men tumbling into fire. The rest scattered in panic. Rescue 1. Packages secured. Exfil commencing. Aria finally exhaled. But not in relief. Not yet. As the helicopters clawed back into the sky, her RWR screamed fresh warnings. New threats spiked on the ridgelines, and the ambush wasn't over. Enemy fire burst from hidden emplacements. One last wall of steel waiting to crush the escape. Overwatch. Falcon 7 engaging. Aria's voice cut sharp through the comms. Her jet screamed across the valley, loosing ordnance with surgical precision. Insurgents scattered for cover, racing to cut off the retreat. Aria struck them down one by one, carving fire into the night. Below, Rescue 1 reported both packages secured. Moving to exfil. Copy, Aria answered, circling above them like a hawk. Your path is clear. The helicopters clawed sky, rotors shredding dust, carrying Generals Hayes and Stein away from what hours earlier had looked like certain death. Aria tracked them until they cleared the ridgeline, only then allowing herself a single breath. But the reprieve shattered in an instant. Her threat receiver shrieked a hidden SAM nest, masked until now, lit up from the mountainside. A missile streaked skyward, hungry for the escaping convoy. Missile launch. Overwatch's calm cracked. Falcon 7 visual, engaging. Aria rolled hard, diving between the missile and the helicopters. She dumped flares in blinding blossoms, pulling the jet into a brutal break that pressed her into the seat. The missile chased heat, wavered, and tore itself apart in the flare's false suns. Stone and fire rained down the slope. Rescue 1 clear, continuing exfil. Aria's jaw unclenched only when the birds disappeared beyond the horizon. Safe. The return flight stretched across the dark sky, her jet steady beneath her hands. 3 weeks ago, she'd been grounded for reckless flying. Tonight, that same instinct had saved two of the most powerful figures in the free world. Tower. Falcon 7 requesting clearance to land. Falcon 7, cleared to land. Welcome home. Falcon Bay's runway glowed ahead, lights guiding her down. The jet touched Earth with flawless grace that mocked the chaos it had survived. Aria taxied in, canopy rising to reveal her squadron assembled. Colonel Rourke at the front. Captain Navarro, step out. She climbed down, helmet under her arm, boots striking the tarmac. Mission report. Both targets rescued, enemy defenses eliminated. No friendly losses. Rourke's face was unreadable. 3 weeks ago, I grounded you for reckless flying that risked American lives. Yes, sir. Tonight. That same flying saved 2 American generals. Silence pressed in. The squadron waited. Navarro. The military needs pilots who can think beyond doctrine but also know when to respect it. Do you understand? I do, sir. Do you? She held his gaze. I do now. Rourke gave a slow nod. Captain Navarro, reinstated to full flight status. Disciplinary review closed with commendation for exceptional performance under extreme pressure. The knot in her chest finally loosened. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. You'll lead advanced tactical training, and you'll master protocol. I expect both. A faint smile touched her lips. Guess I'll finally learn the paperwork. See that you do. She turned from him, night air cool on her face. 3 weeks ago, she had been the cautionary tale proof of what happened when instinct outran orders. Tonight she was proof of something else. Sometimes breaking the rules was the only way to bring people home. The truth lay somewhere in between. Aviation demanded structure and imagination, loyalty and audacity. The F-35 loomed behind her, gleaming under hangar lights, waiting for its next call. She wasn't the grounded rogue anymore. She wasn't the reckless ace. She was something new, a pilot who had learned to balance daring with duty. Runway lights reflected off her visor as she whispered to herself. Low enough only the jet could hear. Not grounded anymore. Some pilots followed flight plans. Others carved them into the sky, one impossible line at a time. And when the next crisis cracked the night, Falcon 7 already knew where she belonged inside the cockpit, carving her own line through the fire.